SciShow Tangents. It's the lightly competitive science knowledge showcase. I'm your host, Hank Green, and joining me this week, as always, is science expert Sari Riley.
Hello.
And also our resident everyman, Sam Schultz.
Hello.
I've got an important question for the two of you, because today, the day that we're recording this, is not a stressful day at all that I'm trying to distract ourselves from. It's election day when we're recording this, so we don't know what's going to happen, and you do. But instead, what should they turn into a Lego set?
Oh, they've turned everything into a Lego set.
No, not everything. There should be things that aren't Lego sets yet. You could just say, like, my house or my dog.
A little Hank Lego would be great.
Yeah?
It couldn't be your house, though, because then people would figure out where you lived.
Well, that wouldn't be a Lego set. It'd just be a minifig. And also, that would be a huge honor.
A YouTube collectible minifig set with Hank.
I thought you meant like a full size, like one of those 10, it's more than 10,000 pieces. It's like at Legoland sculptures of Hank.
Yeah, I know a guy who got one of those made of him, and it was a big deal.
Who was it? The Incredible Hulk?
I think it was Jonathan Colton. I was on a cruise. I was on the Joko cruise, and there was a Lego artist, and I believe he made a full-sized Joko.
When your hair changed, the guy who made it would have been like, oh, come on. And then he would have had to go make you new hair.
They just make new hair. That'd be very easy to
click it off, click it back on. Yeah.
There is a cat Lego set.
There's famously a cat Lego set.
The Tuxedo Cat Lego set. But
yes, that's a good cat. I want it to be my cat, though.
Yeah. the set name is My Cat.
And don't buy someone else's. This is just Hank's cat.
Yeah.
Please don't buy this. I know too much about Legos. This is my issue. I know too many. So
I think so. You know, they came out with that Mario Lego set with a rotating background. Cowards play.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I think what you should have is a full scale Rainbow Road Lego set complete with small cars that you can then structurally build soundly. And then it is infringing on Hot Wheels territory where you build the track and then get to play and race on it. And I think that would be a very cool Lego set.
This year they're doing Mario Kart Legos, so you might get your wish. Yeah, that's the next thing. See, I know too much about Legos.
Are they really?
A thing.
Yeah. Heck. All right, I got it. Babylon 5. Take that, Sam.
They haven't made that because nobody would buy it.
I want weird space stuff. I'm tired of all this Star Wars nonsense.
Less weird, I would buy an infinite amount of Star Trek Legos. I would love to have little Star Trek Legos.
Give me Star Trek Legos.
They're in the domain of Playmobil, which I don't fuck with Playmobil.
Are they really? They're Playmobil licensed? Is that why you can't make Star Trek Legos?
That's why you can't make a Star Trek Lego. Playmobil.
Huge mistake, Paramount.
Yeah.
That's so embarrassing for you.
Yeah, I always think that when people do like a Mega Bloks partnership, it's like, what are you thinking?
I'm so sorry pathetic. This happened to you. Is how I feel about your deal.
Makes me think less of SpongeBob SquarePants, frankly, that he has the Mega Bloks.
You do know a lot about this, Sam.
I do, Hank. I'm secretly quite a toy collector. I'm not supposed to tell anybody that, but I am.
There's a YouTube video called How to Make a Lego Hank Green Minifigurine.
Oh, wow.
I think that's when you know you've made it. Wikipedia article, old hat.
It's got 300,000 views.
How many?
300,000.
Oh, my God. When's it from?
2 years ago.
Oh, wow, Hank.
What the world? Next time somebody gives me a hard time on Twitter, I'm going to be like, Do you have a Lego minifigurine tutorial video that has 300,000 views? I think not. You say I'm a nobody just because, wow, it's very short. It's 22 seconds long.
Oh, that does look like you, Hank. That's really good.
I love it. Well, that's not how I expected this to go at all. Anyway, I'd like a Battlestar Galactica Lego. Moving on. Every week here on SciShow Tangents, we get together to try to one-up, amaze, and delight each other with science facts while also trying to stay on topic. Our panelists are playing for glory and for Hank Butts. Hank Butts?
Hank Butts.
Hank Butts.
All right.
We're getting those Lego minifigure bottoms.
Just jangling around in a pouch, which I will be awarding at the end of the episode, and one of them will be crowned the winner. Now, as always, we're going to introduce this week's topic with the traditional science poem. This week, thankfully, it's not me, because I didn't make one. It's from Sam.
Today we're talking about camouflage, which helps a thing remain unseen. And I know the first question on everyone's lips is, why can't fur be green? There's lots of green stuff in the world. For example, grass and trees. And if only squirrels could match with those, they'd be hidden as they please. But instead, most mammals are gray and brown, or orange if they're bold. But never green, I'm sad to say, like moss or leaves or mold. And lots of guys out there are green. Think lizards, frogs, and snakes. Which makes me wonder if furs even tried to be green for heaven's sakes. And I hear you saying tree bark is brown in the winter and the spring, but there's that rabbit that's white in the winter, so your argument doesn't mean a thing. Picture a squirrel, verdant green in summer, that turns to brown in fall. He'd never be caught while scampering around. He'd be the most powerful squirrel of all. So turn green, all you mammals out there. You know it's the right thing to do. My next advice is for the birds. You guys should really all be blue.
Sam, you gotta put that one in the Hall of Fame.
That one's gotta be in the
book. That's
Yes.
so good.
Okay, thank you.
That's straight kids book territory.
It's gotta be. Yeah, you're right.
That was adorable. And the topic for the day is camouflage. But before we talk about what that is, we're gonna take a quick break and then be back to define camouflage. Welcome back, everybody. Camouflage, which gotta be French, but I guess we'll find out about that in a second. Sari, what is it?
It is French. It's a French word that means disguise.
We don't get a lot of French words, I feel like. They're all Germanic, right?
Yeah, Proto-Indo-European languages.
Right.
Yeah, we're not doing any SciShow tangents, deja vu or croissant. So we're still to camouflage. And it goes back in French probably to camouflare, which meant disguise, like an older Parisian slang. And from before that, we're kind of unsure. There's an Italian word, camouflare. I don't know how to say it, which also means to disguise. That is also of uncertain origin, which might be a contraction of the phrase capo muffere, which means to muffle the head. Kind of sinister, but
that sounds bad. Yeah, put like
hide that.
Put a sack over somebody's head.
Or it could be from the word, the French word camouflet, which meant a puff of smoke or blowing smoke into someone's face. So kind of
escape.
How to escape. Yeah, how Team Rocket always
That's a wild
escapes.
thing to have a word for.
Well, what is the word again?
Camouflet.
Well, they can't possibly
yeah, they don't
pronounce
say
that
T's.
T.
Yeah, that's my English diction.
Camouflage.
Yeah, and then we just kind of stole it from them because we were trying to use a lot of words to describe the concept of disguises, especially during military inventions.
Yeah, I'm looking at the world use of the word camouflage, and it does not exist until World War One. And then it just shoots up because it's like, we need a word for this thing that we are doing now. Before, when we did war, we just we didn't need to hide because you couldn't kill anybody without being close up to them.
Why are there so many French words in war? Is it because of Napoleon?
Well, there was lots of, I imagine there's lots of there was lots of English people and French people being closer to each other during wars, because that's when there would be conflict. They would be close to each other.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm the science expert of the podcast. I don't pretend to know anything about diplomatic relations.
Mm-hmm. I love that this is a word that didn't exist. We needed a word for it for human war use, and then we were like, all right, moths, you get that too.
It is really hard to describe what it is without saying a billion words. You blend in. It's like blending in with a thing that you're against to hide. Right?
looking like the around.
Yeah.
Looking like they're around with fun colors that were painted on you or a thing that you've put on top of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And so, I guess they're the engineered materials, and then we started using it to describe animals because that was a good.
They're kind of always doing it.
Yeah, they used it to hide a lot of the times.
Yeah, what did we call that before? Did we just not have a word for what animals tried to hide?
We couldn't
They're
see
very
him.
well good at Heidi color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A good at Heidi color is what that guy is.
I imagine we just described it and said it was a behavioral thing or
Looks
an
like
aspect
bird.
of it. You can
Looks
say
like
that in
a
pretty few words. That moth is good at hiding on trees.
Yeah.
He's tree colored.
Yeah.
That
tree-colored
chameleon changes color.
That would be a hard one to describe before you had the word camouflage, frankly.
Yeah. I'm glad
They
we
really
have
came into their own with the invention of the word camouflage.
Thanks,
Yes,
war.
That's us.
What would we do without you?
We'd say color changing little guy.
And there'd be way fewer deaths.
And have way fewer deaths.
Probably
So
worth
trade-off. The trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we? I feel like there's a pretty cut and dried definition. I'm sure that there are times when it's like not entirely clear whether or not they're doing it, but it's the it that they're doing is pretty clear.
The it that they're doing is some sort of visual hiding strategy, and there's color
does it
matching.
have to be visual? Can I scent camouflage myself? Can I?
Okay. Yes. You can acoustic camouflage. You can scent camouflage. You can do other forms of.
You can hide a flavor with another flavor. You can taste camouflage.
Is that camouflage? If you wrap a gusher in a piece of ham.
Like parents will blend up a bunch of like spinach in a food, and hide it so their kids will eat the spinach.
Green juice. The concept of green juice.
Sort of green juice adjacent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if I like sneeze, but I go?
That's camouflage too. Yep.
I think we can say whatever we want. I think there are other words that scientists use for that. Any sort of like hiding behavior. Crypsis, I think, is one of them, which means an organism concealing themselves. And so I think a lot of the times that we dive deeper into camouflage, unless you add on an extra word, like if you're just talking about camouflage, no modifier, you're assuming it's a visual color matching strategy, counter shading strategy, something to do with the visual appearance of the cloak that you're wrapping yourself in or the moth that's sitting on the tree.
That makes a lot of sense, Sari. You're right.
And if we didn't have war, we'd probably just call it like concealing coloration.
Yeah. Or that word you just said, crypsis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was good.
Visual crypsis.
Visual crypsis. Well, how does it spell crypsis for me?
Crypsis, like crypt.
That's what I'm going to name my winery. It actually sounds kind of gross now that I think.
Yeah.
Like people would be like, is that a disease?
Well, it works with the cellar, kind of. If you had a haunted winery, you could absolutely call it Crypsis.
Yeah, haunted
Crypsis acres.
We're the Crypt Sisters, and welcome to
Crypsis Vineyard. All right. I feel like I know what it is, camouflage. And now that means we're going to move on to the quiz portion of our show. Our game this week is called Disappearing Acts. In the hunt for perfect camouflage, militaries around the world have come up with some pretty wild paint jobs and modifications for their vehicles. And while these camos have come and gone for some good reasons, there was science behind some of them. And I'm going to introduce you to 3 of the weirdest forms of camouflage of all time, while asking you some trivia questions.
Okay.
So, number 1.
Okay.
During World War I, the US and the UK would paint their ships in a bizarre pattern of black and white stripes intended to confuse potential attackers by breaking up the outline of the boats. We still use this today when they like have to put a test model of a new car that they don't want to release the body shape of, but they still have to like put it on the test track, and so journalists are going to take pictures of it, so they make them all stripy. What was the name though, and continues to be the name of that camouflage? Dazzle, Daze, or Bamboozle, or Dave?
Oh. Dave.
The secret fourth. Like Dave the zebra.
This is a callback to an ancient episode of Holy Fucking Science. Where was it my wife? My wife was on the episode. I can't remember if she talked about this or not, but I'm pretty sure it's called Dazzle. That's my guess.
Okay. I'm also pretty sure it's called Dazzle.
That's good for you guys, because I definitely did not know, but it is Dazzle. Dazzle camouflage does not at all look subtle. but it isn't to hide the thing. It's to obscure the distance, the direction, and their speed so that enemies would struggle to fire correctly on them.
Yeah,
if you can't tell which direction the ship's pointed, you don't know where it's going. The idea was inspired by a characteristic called disruptive coloration. And yes, zebras and skunks do this. Essentially, instead of evolving camouflaging visuals, the animals evolved high contrast patterns intended to confuse the predators. And a 2006 study using moths found that disruptive coloration did effectively reduce predation for the moths, especially on backgrounds that did not visually match.
It also looks cool as hell. I don't want my battleship to be this colored if I got to pick if I was captain.
It can be pretty disorienting to look at. It's like a thing that they can do at like fun houses sometimes. Like I think Meow Wolf has a room like this where you go in and you're like, I can't tell where the edge of the room is.
I think this would be my wartime job. I would go paint a ship, some stripes. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to sit.
That would be a great wartime job.
I like sit on a little wooden platform with a newsboy cap and some overalls and go, hey, sir, need your ship painted?
Riley, you painted all the stripes straight. What the heck were you thinking?
That just looks like a cool boat.
Yeah.
Second question. In the early 1940s, the British Royal Navy experimented with painting their planes and ships a color called Mountbatten pink. Why would they choose this seemingly pretty conspicuous color?
A ship?
Sorry. Planes and ships. And there are three things that they could be.
Oh, okay.
One, to confuse the radar that was used at the time. Two, to disguise the vehicles at dawn and dusk. And C, because light pink is very hard to see at distance. 1, 2, and C.
Wow. The radar doesn't make sense to me because that doesn't matter what color it is, I don't think. Does it?
Yeah, does pink mess with radio waves in some way? I feel like no. I feel like it's separate in the spectrum of waves bouncing around.
What I like about this game is that it is kind of also got dazzle camouflage. I can't quite tell what the hell this game is. It's a lot of different games all combined. But the other two almost seem like the same thing, where it's like pink would be hard to see at dawn and dusk, but also, I guess, hard to see
far away.
I'm going to guess disguise at dawn and dusk because, like, sunrise, sunset, kind of in that, if you're on the horizon, if you're coming on a plane, then it's kind of hard to see.
I guess I just think for a plane, that makes sense, but how fast does a boat go? Does it go too slow for it to time it out right to get to be dawn and dusk? I don't know how fast a boat goes. So I'm going to guess the last one. The pink is harder to see. That's one of them, right?
Pink is harder to see.
Yeah.
Pink is harder to see at dawn and dusk, or pink is harder to see at a distance?
At a distance. Oh, there's too hard at a distance.
There's too hard to see.
There's too hard to see.
Hard to see with radar, hard to see at dawn dusk, hard to see at a distance.
I'm going to go with at a distance.
And Sarah, you were dawn and dusk?
I was dawn and dusk because I think
Sarah is correct.
Ah.
So this is named after a guy named Lord Mountbatten who first used it for his fleet. It was kind of more of a light purple color when he first did it. And you can see how that might blend into a sunset. It's not necessarily super intimidating to see the pink destroyer on the horizon, but many British ships and planes were painted this color. But studies on the effectiveness of Mountbatten pink as a camouflage are scarce. One factor involved could be what's called the Purkinje effect, which I've always called the Purkinje effect. So I'm really learning something here today. But apparently, according to the guide here, that's Purkinje. But this is, in low light conditions, human eyes perceive more light on the blue end of the spectrum, as they perceive that as brighter compared to red or green lights. So anything with too much red in it, like pink warships, would be darker and higher contrast, and thus actually easier to see in dim light. Oh. So that's a thing to keep in your mind. Ultimately, this was replaced only a few years into its use with gray, because that's better. It's just a better camouflage.
I think if a pink airplane was flying at me, I'd be like, what does this guy know that I don't know? I would be intimidated.
Yeah. What does Lord Mountbatten know?
Yes.
I guess he had a bad day one day when some planes flew in at dawn and dusk.
He mixed up his paint colors. He wanted the gray one and then spilled some red inside and then just had to use it up.
Bucket of paint.
It's wartime. Resources
Everyone's
are
gonna make
scant.
fun of me at the war. Then he just leaned in. He said, "This shit's hard to see, so fuck you guys. I'm winning
Well,
this
there
war."
was a period of time where pink was a very masculine color too.
Yeah.
So instead
That's
of the
right.
baby blue, baby pink, be like, this is the manliest fighter jet ever seen in war. They will cower before my pink
your
plane.
jet looks
Yeah.
like a.
Now we have to do everything in matte black because that's apparently the manly color. Boo.
Yeah. That or whatever the Cybertruck chrome
Camo's
is.
pretty.
Well, they make like those dude wipes with camo packaging, you know. So camo is also a manly color.
Only the packaging is camo? That's disappointing.
I think so. I don't know. Yeah, that is disappointing. You're right. I didn't think of that. I'm sure they're trying
We
to
can
crack
do
it
better.
over there at Dude Wipe
We could be
HQ.
like big dude wipes and
Yeah.
they could be camo all the way through.
Yeah, if I'm wiping my butt with a white thing, it's like I'm surrendering. I'll never surrender.
Yeah. You don't want to
can't-
acknowledge that your poop is smearing on it. You gotta
Yeah.
like blend
I
in
gotta
with the camo.
dominate this number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very weird, everyone. Number 3. During World War II, I almost said World War III, which let's hope. During World War
We're all doing great as we're recording this very fun podcast.
During World War II, the U.S. fitted some aircraft with a form of camouflage called Yehudi lights on the front of planes. What was the purpose of these lights? A, to look like stars when flying at night. B, to raise the brightness of the plane to match the sky. Or C, to cast shadows on the plane that distorted the plane's outline.
I feel like the name doesn't help much,
It doesn't.
but the light to match the sky, that's pretty ingenious, I think. But
Why?
because the sky, because, you know, you see a plane at night a little darker than the sky. Well, I guess maybe you could turn it up and down to match like how dark it was, but I guess how would you know? You'd have to look behind you and be like, that looks like about this bright.
You need a buddy plane in front of you to be like, turn down your light, please. Jim, light down.
Yeah, a buddy plane, and then he needs a buddy plane, and then where does it end? The stars thing is so stupid.
There's no way. You'd look at it and say, that's a shooting star. That's 2 shooting stars.
That moves.
That's a car in the sky. Very suspicious.
And then casting shadows on the plane, this seems like you still got a light on your plane. That still doesn't seem very helpful.
I feel like it falls in the realm of camouflage and the way that it is a visual trick that I don't quite understand. I think I'm going to go with the distorting the outline thing because I know that is a technique for camouflage. Is if you just can't quite focus on something, then it's hidden.
I'm going to go with the match the sky behind the night sky brightness.
Well, the answer is to raise the brightness of the plane to match the sky.
I told
which
you, smart.
is so
Terry.
cool because planes can be a little bit like the sky has a little bit of light
Got
in
a
it.
little light up there.
It's got a little light in there. So it's actually the Yehudi lights and not Yehundi. I just looked it up. And I was like, I got to figure out why they're called Yehudi lights. And y'all, it was a meme. It was a weird meme that has something to do with a radio show with Bob Hope and his sidekick, Jerry Colonna.
An ancient meme. One of the
It's an
first.
ancient meme, and it's in reference to a violinist whose last name was Yehudi. But apparently, they just kept making fun of this guy's name, and they kept, the guy kept saying, "Who's Yehudi? Who's Yehudi?" And it was funny enough that it caught on, and everybody couldn't shut up about it, and it became like a slang term for a guy who wasn't there for some reason. And I really would love to get deeper into it, but doesn't seem like it'd be useful to do since it's not a word that we use for anything anymore. But there was a time when Bob Hope had all of America in his grasp.
What I'm hearing is Bob Hope and his sidekick Jerry were the McElroy brothers of their day. And Yehudi was Matt Doyle. And they have just done it. They did it first. Nothing is original content.
That's a bit of a deep cut, but some people came along with us, Sari. So they did it to reduce the contrast between the planes and the sky. More advanced radar made this obsolete in the late 1940s, but some military contractors have experimented with them to supplement other kinds of camouflage since then. For example, the McDonnell Douglas added Yehudi lights to the underside of its F-4 Phantom jet in the 70s to complement its radar-evading shape.
How would it know how bright the sky was, though? They did their best.
They did their best.
Okay.
Squids do this too.
Oh,
They will light
right.
themselves up a little bit. So when you're looking up at them, they're basically the color of the top of the ocean.
Yeah, counter illumination of a lot of deep sea animals do, because otherwise you're just an imposing shadow, and the things that you want to eat will see you.
They had to add a bunch of lights so that they will be spread out all over a bunch of dimmer lights to be spread out all over the airplane.
Yeah, they're doing this back in time. They didn't have the light technology we have now.
Just a bunch of LEDs now. So easy. And that means that it's a tie game. Congratulations to both of you. Next up, we're going to take a short break, and then it will be time for the Fact Off. SciShow Tangents is brought to you by the all-new PBS Eons Trilobite and Ammonite magnets. Do you like PBS Eons? Do you like fossils? Do you have a refrigerator or something else that's made out of metal? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then I have some good news for you. PBS Eons, the complexly produced YouTube series that takes you on a journey through the history of life on Earth from the Archean Eon to the Ice Age, has just released a pair of fossil-based magnets that you can put right on your fridge and also anywhere else magnets stick.
Much like a Pokemon trainer picking up a Pokemon fossil at Cinnabar Lab, you can choose between a magnet based on a trilobite or an ammonite. Not a Kabuto or an Omanite, though the name, that's where it comes from. Close. And unlike a Pokemon trainer, you don't have to pick just one or beg your sibling to trade you one. You can get them both. Get several. It's the holiday season, for Pete's sake.
Hang that history test you aced or that PBS Eons fan art you drew on the fridge with pride. Get your Ammonite and Trilobite magnets today at complexly.store/eons. And check out lots of other great Complexly merch while you're there. That's complexly.store/eons.
Welcome back, everybody. Get ready for the Fact Off. Our panelists have brought in science facts to present to me in an attempt to blow my mind. And after they've finished their facts, I will judge them and award Hank Bucks however I see fit. But to decide who goes first, I have a trivia question. Bargibants, pygmy seahorses, I think I did that right, are tiny.
Yeah.
And they're shy and they're adorable and they are camouflage geniuses. They live in a type of coral called Gorgonian coral, or sea fans, which have brightly colored branches covered in distinct contrastingly colored polyps. Pop off the tip of one of those branches, give it a curly cute tail and a snub nose, and you've got yourself a pygmy seahorse. They perfectly match the base and polyp colors of their coral homes. They're so indistinguishable, their discovery was an accident. A researcher in 1969 fished up a sea fan to examine it and didn't notice its tiny inhabitants until he was back at the museum studying it. So the question is,
they were dead.
They were fine, dead? Everybody. They did fine. It was fine. They were happy. They were healthy. They were, I don't know how it went, but all I could say, they're still alive to this day.
Okay, thank you.
You've seen them with your own eyes.
Yeah.
I'd feel so bad if that was me. And
I'd be like, I killed are these the only ones? So the question, though, is how many different color combinations do you think these aquatic introverts come in?
How many colors of coral are there?
About 1 million.
About 1 million. Sam's gonna say
these things mathematically they really stack up. So I think it could be about 1
with
million.
6 zeros. Is Sam's call.
You're laughing now, Sari, but you're gonna see.
You're gonna win, yeah. Well, I'm mostly laughing because my strategy was about the number of different trolley right crawler combos there are.
Oh, that's great. That's
3.
Great.
Nice.
There must be 3. They're small.
It's somewhere between 1 million and 3.
Fruity.
I bet you it's in between. I bet you it's not 2 or 1 million and 1.
It's exactly in between. That would be something.
Yeah, if it was exactly 500,000.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The answer, oh my God, you guys, is 2.
Is it 1 million and 1? Oh.
You really made it sound like it was gonna be a bunch.
The funniest possible number.
Wait, I didn't hear what it was. What was it?
It's 2. It's 2.
Oh,
Wow, Sam's having our experience, but delayed by 30 seconds. So there's 2. There's purple with pink bumps. which are called tubercles, by the way, because it's the same as the root for tuberculosis. Or there's yellow with orange tubercles, depending on the coloration of their host gorgonian coral.
Okay, I bet there is a blue with green tubercles to match the trolley bright crawlers. We just haven't found it yet.
Wow.
Just haven't found it yet.
This is the best trivia question ever.
It did make me say Gorgonian Bargibants. Bargibant, and it made me say tubercle several times. Well, that means that Sarah gets to go first.
Okay. I cannot top the trivia question, unfortunately, with my fact. So there are around 3,000 species of orb weaver spiders, which have a wide variety of web building strategies, but they're all kind of generally circular. Those yellow and black garden spiders that you see, or that I would like run my face into accidentally across North and Central America, are a type of orb weaver. But some of them get a little fancier and weave non-sticky web decorations, which are more formally called a stabilimentum. I think because there was a theory way back that it would cause some stability, and now we've thrown that out the window. Some of these web decorations look really beautiful and elaborate, like zigzags or spirals, and some of them are trash. And specifically, the spider webs of the genus Cyclosa, which have the common name trashline orb weavers, integrate all kinds of trash into their decorations, including dry husks of insects or leaf litter or other just kind of dirt junk that they find or gets trapped in their web. And we are still sort of guessing what these web decorations could be for. But some researchers think that this trash collecting behavior is for camouflage, since the tannish brown spider can hunker down and hide from predators in its trash line. And instead of seeing a spider sitting in the center of a web, it sort of looks like a streak of bird poop just kind of splattered it and they leave it alone. So that is cool. But some trash line orb weavers take this camouflage to an even bigger extreme. They arrange that debris into a self-portrait of sorts. A big body with anywhere from 4 to 8 spindly legs sticking off of it. In a December 2012 blog post, researchers reported what they thought was a new species of trash line orb weavers when they found 25 of these self-portrait creating spiders, and they talked with other experts, and I don't think they gathered enough evidence to formally publish and name the discovery, or at least I am not entrenched enough in arachnid literature to find it. Okay. But the little orb weavers are around 1/4 of an inch big, while the decoys are almost a full inch big, and the spiders kind of hide in the corner and wiggle the web a little bit of the fake decoy, so it looks like a giant monster spider is wiggling around in this whole performance art. And the researchers think that the predator they're hiding from are paper wasps, who then attack the bigger trash effigy, assuming it's the real deal. And that is just the plain weirdest form of camouflage. I think I've gotten better at rationalizing that camouflage is a result of natural selection and gradual complex evolution. So all these patterns are random and just get selected for. But this is like a little spider without a mirror, learned what it looks like, and then made a big version of himself in the middle of the web. And that is so wild.
Yeah.
It is just so weird. He doesn't know what it looks like. It's it's the shape that worked best. And so somehow the instinct picked out, the instincts developed over generations to make a thing that looked most spider-like. What?
But that's an insane instinct.
Then the wasp destroys the web, which seems bad. But I guess it's better than dying.
Or does it
better than dying.
Okay. So does it spend its whole life doing this, or when it knows that something around is going to eat it, or what? Like,
I think it just does. I think that's what they're trying to weigh of, like, when does it make sense to invest all this energy building a big fake spider? They found like egg cases scattered among the trash line, or I don't know if they've found it within these spider mimics or whatever, but it could be. I assume it's a survival strategy. Like, the trade-off is it takes a bunch of energy and time to make this thing, but you don't die and you get to pass on your genes. And that's usually how natural selection works. And yes, like Hank said, it's just, I don't know, the instinct to put trash in a shape.
In a certain shape.
Yeah.
In a certain shape. And then your babies are safer.
I've seen this before, but I don't know if it's sunk in how freaking weird it is. I love it. I mean, it's not really camouflage because the spider isn't camouflaging itself.
And make a scarecrow.
So you lose, Sari.
And the
It's
episode
hiding. It's hiding in the corner of its trash, larger self. But yes, it is less like it's not. I don't know. Putting the leaves.
It's
on
weird.
itself.
There's not a word for it. Self-portrait mimicry bait.
We need another war. Come on, let's go. Give me a new word.
All right, Sam, what do you got?
Hey, wheat. People love growing wheat, don't they?
I love wheat.
It's so versatile. You can make it into bread. You can feed it to other animals. You can probably do lots of other things with it too that I didn't look up. But you know what else loves to eat wheat? Mice. The battle between man and mouse over wheat has probably been going on forever. We go to all that work to sow it and grow it, and those nasty little freeloaders get to eat their fill of planted grain, doing billions of dollars of damage to our precious wheat industry in the process. So what do we do? Well, we poison them mostly, but spreading poison around a field has some issues too, like you might just poison some endangered native species that are in your field too. And there's only so much poison to spread every time you spread poison, and basically an endless number of mice. So once a round of poison is eaten, there's always more mice to keep eating your wheat, and then you have to spread more poison and back and forth. So poisoning isn't a perfect solution, but it's sort of the only one we got until 2023, when scientists in Australia had an idea inspired by a conservation technique using smell-based camouflage. So New Zealand has several types of ground nesting birds, and it also has lots of invasive predators like house cats, which ground nesting birds are super vulnerable to. So conservationists in New Zealand started to apply bird odors to places where there were not birds. And then predators would like hunt down these dummy scents where there were no birds. And then those predators started to associate the smell of birds with the smell of there not is a bird here. So no bird is what they thought a bird smelled like. So the birds were camouflaged basically by smelling like birds. The cat smelled it, thought not a bird, and it seemed to work. The current model shows that flightless bird populations are on track to increase 127% over the next 25 years. So, back to Australia and the wheat. The scientists knew that the mice were identifying grains of wheat by the scent of the wheat germ oil inside of them. So they divided up a field into plots that were sown and unsown, basically like planted and unplanted fields, and they would spray wheat germ oil on the unsown plots with the hope that the mice would smell the wheat germ, go to the unplanted field, and then start to think, when I smell this smell, it means there is no seeds to be had. But it didn't work. So what did work, though...
That's the first strategy. You try and convince mice that the thing that smells like food doesn't actually mean food. And mice are like, that's not... No, it might. It's probably worth checking.
Yeah, the mice kept checking. But what did work was actually kind of even easier. So in some of the plots that they were testing, they planted grain and sprayed the field with the wheat germ oil. And in those fields, they saw a 63% reduction in seed loss because there was just too much information. So the mice didn't know where to look for the grain. So they would dig they would just like tire themselves out looking for the grain, and they couldn't find as much of it. So what they discovered could be an ecological solution to pest damage, but more importantly, because of the way the world works, this solution is also, I think, more cost effective than spreading and respreading poison. So probably maybe something people will actually start using.
What do we do in the US about mice with wheat? Do we just let them eat it?
I don't know. We probably put poison down, if I had to guess, but I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we just like solved that problem at some point, but I guess not.
No, I don't know. When they're in the field, I don't know, but it does seem like you don't hear about that problem a lot. Well, when you do, it is always like Australia. So maybe we know and we're not telling anybody else.
We've already been spraying the wheat smell, maybe.
And America's like, oh, cool idea, guys. Never would have thought of it. No, I don't know.
You should totally do that.
We only live in Montana, where the most wheat in the whole entire universe is grown. So we could go ask somebody, I guess.
Sounds honestly like I'm glad it's not my job, is how I feel. Trying to control mice from eating your wheat sounds real miserable. But I guess I don't know. And mice, you can't get rid of mice. No, they're mice.
They're too little. They're everywhere.
They're the most everywhere thing ever.
I think bacteria would have something to say about that.
What?
The mice are the most everywhere thing everywhere. Bacteria give them a run for that. But like big
That's
things.
true.
Yeah.
There's bacteria in mice and in me, but there's no mice in me.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I hope
true.
not. I hope not.
And there's no mice in mice either.
And a bacteria only needs to eat such a little amount of grain. We can let them have a little bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
But mice
We can
take
also
a lot
let them
more
eat
grain.
the mice and the people and everything. I think that I love them both. And also, they're both very non-traditional camouflages. But Ceres is just is so
It's so
weird
cute. It's so good.
to be a spider making a giant self-portrait.
Without knowing, without a
Unacceptable.
thought in your head.
It's tragic that they don't know. I don't like that.
Some of them are better than others, which really frustrates me. Like, why can I look at spider self-portraits and be like, that one sucks, and that one's good?
Yeah. The juried art show of these spider self-portraits.
Congratulations, Sari Riley. And now,
Thank you.
Now, it's time for Ask Science, where we ask a question to our couch of finely honed scientific minds.
The Freak on Patreon. And
I'm so glad we finally got a question from the Freak.
yeah, we're waiting. And Moody Bookworm 7856 on YouTube asked, how did octopus/cuttlefish and chameleons both end up evolving very similar methods of being able to change their color to match the environment? Is it because stuff can only do so much stuff? Is that why also hair can't be green? Because stuff can only do so much stuff.
I don't have a good answer for you about the green hair, Sam. Except that like melanin has only figured out how to be a few different colors.
Stuff can only do so much stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like there are some parts of it where it's similar, but also some parts where it's pretty different between cuttlefish and chameleons.
Yeah, it's like a similar thing they do, but not a similar method of doing it.
I think that there might be part of it that is similar, but there's also part of it that's not. There's a bunch of different ways. Like there isn't just one way that they change color, which is cool and weird. But am I hunting? I made a video about this like 8 years ago. So
Yeah. I mean, you're hunting in the right direction, and that's basically it. All of what you have said collectively, I think is correct.
Okay.
So this is the like biological term, if you want to learn about things like this, it's called convergent evolution.
Yeah.
That's when you have animals or any sort of like living thing that evolved in similar ways despite not being closely genetically related to each other. So like broad picture, birds and bats both have wings, even though bats are mammals and birds are birds. Caecilians, the like what are they? Amphibian?
They're amphibians.
Like the slimy amphibians lost their legs. Snakes lost their legs. They both kind of slither. They're not really super closely related.
Why didn't mammals ever lose their legs? Why isn't there a little mammal snake?
We could have slithered. There's still time. Someone's got to have their legs on the way out already.
Somebody's got to be pretty close. That's what I'm trying to think of. Like,
Yeah.
maybe like,
Who's the mammal with the littlest legs?
like an armadillo's got pretty tiny legs.
Pretty tiny legs.
They're just rolling around Sonic the Hedgehog style eventually.
And they just got to stretch out long now.
Yeah.
Like an anteater has to lose its legs and then it'll
Yeah.
be extra long. But cephalopods are just particularly weird. So like invertebrates, vertebrates having convergent evolution has also happened with eyes. So octopuses and vertebrates both have similar eyes, despite not being super closely related, in that we have like an iris that can let in more or less light, a circular lens, a retina with photoreceptors on it. And Hank was saying, even though it's at a big picture similar, if you look at a squid eye, if you look at a human eye, it's like, wow, those are shockingly close. If you actually go in at a cellular level, and it's like, okay, they're pretty different. And the most logical solution to how these two things came to be is not that they evolved from a common ancestor that had a lens containing eye. It is that these mechanisms evolved twice by chance and selective pressure and the fact that we both exist in this world and need to see things to survive. And so that's kind of what happened with these cells called chromatophores that take many different shapes and sizes, but are basically cells within the skin of different animals, from arthropods to chameleons to like reptiles like chameleons to invertebrates like cephalopods, that help them change colors. And they just Like they have different pigments in various subchambers of these cells and various sacs, and they're controlled by different muscles, and they're all like slightly different. And then those are how these animals change their colors in different, like sometimes in an emotional way, sometimes to match their background, and like the mechanisms by which they do that is slightly different.
But they do both use chromatophores.
They both use chromatophores, yes.
They convergently evolved on chromatophores because it's just a way to like a good way to do things where you have like a cell that like gets big or small, and that lets you control color.
Yeah, or cell that holds pigment, kind of. I think my sense is that in a chameleon, it is not big or small. So it is, there is an upper cell layer that has iridophore cells, so specifically like crystalline structures in their top cell layer. And then when the skin is relaxed versus like muscles are contracted, then those crystals are distributed differently. And so they reflect different amounts of light around.
Wild.
And that is what allows our eyes to perceive them differently. Whereas in a cephalopod, so like in an octopus, their chromatophores contain sacs filled with pigment. And then they have muscles, more like you were describing, muscles that contract or relax to change the size and shape of those pigment-filled sacs. I don't know, kind of like mixing paint. If you have more dark brown mixed in with like your red, then it will look darker versus if there's less dark paint, less black.
Yeah, almost like
red.
Like a TV screen where there's like they'll have different chromatophores, different color, and if you want to get green, you got to do the yellow and the blue.
Yeah, that is a better way of describing it than paint mixing.
Whatever.
Like,
red and brown was an interesting choice.
Well, I was trying to be realistic because they're either brown or orange or red or yellow. They're all like in this warm hued thing, but not good for the science communication visualization, you know?
It's always a game of compromises with communication, isn't it? Cool. Well, I mean that makes sense. Like the thing where it happens over and over again. But then when you look close, you're like, actually, this is a totally different thing. But then sometimes you look close and it's like, oh my God, they evolved the same protein. Like it was just, which can actually happen because it evolved from the same protein that their common ancestor had, which I think is very cool and weird. The way that like a bunch of different plants separately evolved caffeine, which is just a molecule as a pesticide, which is why tea and coffee both have caffeine, even though they are not closely related plants.
Wow. I never thought about that before.
And a bunch of others.
That's
like
crazy.
The other ones, guarana, also independently evolved caffeine.
I haven't thought about guarana. Remember that drink, Balls? It's like an energy drink.
No.
There's an energy drink called Balls. I bet Tuna knows what I'm talking about.
Just BALLS?
BAWLS, I think is
Oh, BAWLS. Okay.
And it had guarana in it.
Okay. Well, we should get some balls.
My God.
Sam.
Maybe they only had it in Butte. I don't know.
According to Wikipedia, the soda's name has an unclear provenance.
It's like camouflage. All right. And now for our listeners on Patreon, we're going to answer a bonus Science Couch question. Sam, what's our second question?
Okay. At Burkadamacor on YouTube.
Good enough.
Asked a question similarly to their name, a confusing question. What about camouflage that's not in the visual spectrum, like radar or lasers, like LiDAR or thermal vision, sonar?
Ooh. If you want to hear that question as well as enjoy all new episodes totally ad-free, head over to Patreon. That's patreon.com/SciShow Tangents. At our $8 a month tier, you get new episodes ad-free and extended shenanigans as we answer a bonus Science Couch question every episode. Thank you to all of our patrons. We're very grateful for your support. If you want to ask the Science Couch your question, you can follow us on Twitter at SciShow Tangents, or check out our YouTube community tab where we send out the topics for upcoming episodes every week, or join us on our SciShow Tangents Patreon. Thank you to at Kernumbima on YouTube, Cody Smiley. I do. Cody Smiley on Patreon, and everybody else who asked us your questions for this episode. If you like this show and you want to help us out, it's so easy to do that. First, you can go to patreon.com/SciShow Tangents to become a Patreon and get access to our extended ad-free episodes. Shout out to patron Les Aker for their support. Second, you can leave us a review wherever you listen so that we can read them and feel good about ourselves, or bad, whichever way you want us to feel. And finally, if you want to show your love for SciShow Tangents, you can just tell people about us. Thank you for joining us. I've been Hank Green.
I've been Sari Riley.
And I've been Sam Schultz.
SciShow Tangents is created by all of us and produced by Jess Stempert. Our associate producer is Eve Schmidt. Our editor is Seth Glicksman. Our social media organizer is Julia Buzz Bazzaio. Our editorial assistant is Javoki Chakravarti. Today's game was written by Daniel Comiskey. Our sound design is by Joseph Tunamedish. Our executive producers are Nicole Sweeney and me, Hank Green. And of course, we could not make any of this without our patrons on Patreon. Thank you. And remember, the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lighted.
But one more thing. Lots of little critters camouflage themselves as bird poop to avoid predators. For example, the viceroy caterpillar and giant swallowtail caterpillar both look like slimy brown and white logs. There are several species with the common name bird dung spider because they curl up to look and sometimes even smell like a poop splat. And the moth Macrocylix maya takes it to the next level because its wings look like two flies eating bird poop.
No. No.
That wouldn't help you in all situations because it's still like there's bugs.
Yeah.
But I guess it must work. They're like, that's a nasty bug. I wouldn't eat that bug if you paid me. Now a moth, on the other hand, yum yum.
That's so weird, you guys. That's such a strange thing. It's so weird. I can't believe not like everyone doesn't know it.
Especially with the little red and the zigzag that looks like a little fly leg sticking out.
Yeah,
it's got little legs.
Eyes. It's got the red eyes, the perfect color of the red eyes.
It's got like a little shine, like a little counter shading. That
Dear God, it does.
Like it's 3-dimensional.
This is the scariest episode we've ever done.